Kia ora koutou and welcome back to another episode of RCC Kids Online. I hope you've all had a great week and are enjoying being back in level 2. I know I definitely am. I was able to see some friends this week that I haven't seen since before lockdown, so that was really nice to catch up with them, and hopefully you've been able to see some people as well that you haven't seen for a while. For today's episode, we are going to be continuing on with the story of Joseph. And we've also got an exciting activity planned, so stay tuned for that. There won't be any worship today, but again, all the music will be online on YouTube or Spotify, so your parents might be able to help you find some of that. So to begin with, I'd like to remind you of the memory verse. Hopefully you guys have been learning that. And so this is what it says. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. Psalms 51 verse 10. Hopefully you guys are doing well at remembering that. Now it is time to move on to our story. So for our story today, we are going to be continuing on from where we left off last week. And so the chapters that we'll be looking at today are Genesis 40 and 41. So last week, you might remember Joseph was in prison for something that even though he didn't do anything wrong, but because he was a really cool person, he was really hardworking and God was with him, the head prison guard kind of put him in charge of lots of things in the prison because he really liked him and trusted Joseph. So after some time, 2 other people were brought into the prison with Joseph. So this was the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt. And so Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, was really angry with these guys. They defended him, and so they both got sent into prison, and they were in the same prison where Joseph was. So they were there for some time, and then one night they both had a dream. And so they were actually quite sad about this because they knew that the dreams meant something, but they thought there was no one in prison to interpret the dreams for them. And so they were really sad. And when Joseph saw them, he asked, like, why do you look so sad? And they said, there was no one to interpret our dreams. And Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first, and he said that he saw a vine in front of him with 3 branches. And on the branches there were some grapes, and as soon as the grapes were ripened and so ready to eat, he squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup and put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. And so Joseph told him what it meant. He said, the 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. And Joseph said, when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison, because Joseph wasn't really there for any good reason. He hadn't done anything wrong. And so when the chief baker saw that the cupbearer had a really good interpretation, that things are looking up for him in the future and looking good, he told Joseph his dream as well. And he said that in his dream, he had 3 baskets of bread on his head. In the top basket, there were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but birds were eating out of the basket on his head. And so Joseph told him what it meant. He said, the 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh was actually going to still be unhappy at the chief baker, and he would actually end up being killed. So that was quite sad for him, and he was pretty sad about that. And 3 days later, exactly what Joseph said would happen did. So the chief cupbearer was restored to his position. He was cupbearer again for the king, and the chief baker was actually killed. Unfortunately, the chief cupbearer actually forgot about Joseph and the kindness that he showed him. And so after this, there were 2 years that passed and Joseph was still in prison. But after 2 years, the Pharaoh actually had a dream. And he was really worried about this dream because he didn't know what it meant. So what happened in his dream was that he was standing by the Nile River, and then out of the river came 7 cows who were quite fat, and they were like healthy cows. But then after that, there were 7 more cows who were quite ugly and thin, and they didn't have a lot of food in them. And the cows that were very thin ate the 7 fat cows. And so then Pharaoh woke up after this. And then he fell asleep and had a second dream. And this time there were 7 heads of grain, and they were really healthy and good. But then after that, there were 7 heads of grain that were really thin, and they'd been burnt by the wind. So they were very unhealthy, weren't that good to eat. And then Pharaoh woke up again. And so in the morning, he was really troubled by this. And so he went to his advisors to see if any of them could interpret the dream, but none of them could. And at this point, the chief cupbearer remembered Joseph, who was in prison. And so he told Pharaoh about him and said that when he was sent to prison, he had a dream, and so did the chief baker, and Joseph was able to interpret them and tell them correctly what happened through the power of God. And so Pharaoh was quite excited by this, and he said, okay, bring him to me. So Joseph got to put on some new clothes, and he was presented to the king. And so Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream and no one can interpret it, but I have heard it said of you that you can hear a dream and interpret it. And Joseph said, I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. And so Pharaoh told him the dream, and he told him about the 7 fat cows and the thin cows, and how, you know, the 7 thin cows ate the fat cows, and then again with the heads of grain, the same kind of thing happened. And so Joseph told Pharaoh what the dream meant. He said, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. And so he said that the 7 good cows and the 7 really healthy heads of grain were that there was going to be 7 years of abundance of food. So all the farms that they had, they were going to grow lots of food. There was going to be, a lot, just a year, 7 years of really good harvest in Egypt, which was really good. And it was exciting that there's lots of food to eat. But after that, there was going to be 7 years of famine. So it would be very hard to grow food. There would be very little food, and the people in Egypt would be very hungry because of it. And he said the reason why Pharaoh was given 2 dreams is that God had decided that was what was going to happen. And so after this, Joseph gave some advice to Pharaoh. And so he said, now let Pharaoh look for a wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take 1/5 of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of good growing. They should collect all the food in these good years and store it up for the famine that is to come. And so the plan seemed really good to Pharaoh, and he decided that he would make Joseph in charge of this task, because he said, can we find anyone like this man, one in whom is the Spirit of God? And so Pharaoh said, since God has made all of this known to you, there was no one as wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. And so here Pharaoh actually made Joseph second in command of all of Egypt, and he was responsible for looking after all these things. So that's the end of the story, but I think there's some really cool things that we can actually learn from that. And so the biggest thing I think we can see is that God is in control. And I think Joseph actually needed to go to prison and to be sold by his brothers into slavery before that, so that he could be in the position he ended up being in, where he was presented to the king and to Pharaoh and interpreted his dreams. God used Joseph to help a lot of people. He stored up lots of food ready for the famine, so that people could have food to eat. And it helped not just Egypt, but actually other countries around them, because all the people, all the places had a famine at that time and they really wanted food. And Joseph was able to, provide food for them and sell it to them, which is really, really cool. And the cool thing as well is that God can also use us. It won't be in the same way as Joseph, but it's helpful to remember that if things are difficult, there might be a reason for that. And we should trust that God is in control and knows what is best for us. So I have a few questions for us to think about now. And so the first one is, what has been a good thing that has come out of this lockdown for you? So a lot of people have found lockdown a little bit hard, but I think there's still some really positive things that you can do in it. So maybe you've had more time with your family, which has been really cool, or you might have played some cool games. Maybe you found a new place that's really exciting in your local area, or taken up a new hobby, or maybe it's even just made you appreciate normal life a whole lot more, which is really awesome. So think about something that's been good that's come from this lockdown. And the second question is, are there some good things that have come out of other difficult times, maybe in your life or in the lives of your parents? And so that could be something good to ask them if you're not sure if there's, but I think it's always helpful to remember that even though there can be some really difficult circumstances, whether it's this lockdown or whether it's when Joseph was in prison, that there are some positive things that can come out of it. And there's, always good things to look for. And This is actually something that the Bible tells us as well. So in Romans chapter 8 verse 28 it says, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." So that even when things are hard, God is still working for our good and to make things better, which is really encouraging. So I am just going to pray now. Dear God, thank you so much that you love us and that you're always in control. I pray that you'll help us to remember that even in these hard times, that you are still in control and that we should always trust you, and that you'll just help us to see the positive things even when life is looking hard, and know that you're working for our good. Amen. So this is it for the story, and now we're going to move on to the activity. Alright, so for the activity part of this video, I thought it'd be really fun to try something called speed stacking. And so this involves cups, which I think relates to the story because there was a cupbearer in the story. So basically how this works is you have to stack these cups in a certain formation as quickly as possible. So it starts off in 3 piles, so there's going to be 3 cups in this pile. There's going to be 6 cups in the middle pile and 3 cups on this pile here as well. So the cups on the side, they're nice and simple, so just like this. The ones in the middle, you're going to make a bigger pyramid so that it looks like this, and then you make a nice small pyramid on the side. And then after that, you have to put it down as quickly as possible and stack them all up again like that. So because I think this is more fun as a competition, I've decided to get my mum to compete against me. Yeah, and so it's just basically a race to see who has the fastest time. And so it might be worth practicing a little bit before you actually do the competition. So my mum and I did, and you should definitely use plastic cups so that they don't break, but any kind of cup works. And if you don't have this many, you could just do a smaller stack. So maybe you could do the stack like just the stack, which only involves 6 cups. Yeah, so excited to see who wins.
Shall I do a third time? You can just keep which ones you want.
Okay, you ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Because you actually have to work out the width of the table, because that was my problem.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a good collapse.
13 seconds, Mum. That's good.
See, I told you.
Oh, wait, no. Time. Ha! It's 12.
12.96.
Yes! Did on my second attempt.
Yeah, she's better, mother.
Yay! Awesome, so that is the end of the video for today. It was very exciting that I won and beat my mum. I'm very happy with that. If you do try this, I'd love to know how fast you can do it in. So I guess the time to beat would be 12.96 seconds, which is pretty fast. But also the people who professionally do this, you can find them on YouTube. They're super fast, so way faster than that, which is crazy. So that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching and have a good week.
You made this sound easy, Melanie.
I mean...
Okay, this is my warm-up. I'm doing this again.
Okay.
The table's not wide enough to start with. You know, it'll be the 3rd time I'll be really good.
Where's the... Oh no. It's the sneaky cup that was hiding.